and today I'm going to do a small little business analysis on Shopify. So, first of all, what is Shopify? Shopify is a very successful e-commerce platform. So, essentially what this means is that it's a tech company, right? They focus on software, and we all know that tech companies are playing a very important part in this day and age. They are part of the fast growing companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, and stuff like that. So I think it'll be very interesting to take a look into a company that is part of this growth, right? Do you need proof? Look at this. It has a 1 billion plus market cap, and its stock has more than doubled since it initially went public. First it grew a bit, and then it went public, and so now it is listed. It's a publicly traded company, right? What else makes this special? What makes me want to look at it? Well, look, this is a big company, and this is compounded by the fact that it's located in a city that I'm from. So naturally, I'm curious about it, right? And it seems like the perfect company for me to look at to see kind of what's going on with the companies of our day. How are they reacting to the world around us? So I'm going to start with looking at the external environment of Shopify briefly, not comprehensively. So we can see that, as I've already shown, Shopify is a large company. They're growing, and they're an e-commerce platform, which means they are providing a service to merchants, people selling products all over the world, as we've seen, right? All over the world, which means that, first, compounding that they're a big company and that they're serving people all over the world, they're going to be facing an external environment that's composed of parts from all over the world. So let's go back to that Word document, shall we? A very useful tool for looking at this is a pestle analysis. It lets us subdivide the external environment into different categories to make it a bit easier to analyze. We've got political, economic, social, cultural, slash demographic, technological, environmental, and legal. So let's just try and sum up quickly what this means for Shopify when we're doing a pestle analysis. Politically, they need to be careful of all the different countries that they're operating in. I think they have support because, as we know, small and medium enterprises in Europe, they're very popular. There are many of them, and it's important to support these. And so if Shopify is supporting these, then the governments are likely to support them. Economic. When we talk about economic, we're talking about kind of costs imposed, right? And so talking about it first from the merchants, they just need to be careful of, helping the merchants with the costs that they might incur while they're trading. Since it's e-commerce, it can be anywhere in the world. That's important. The next one, we have social-cultural, right? I said that there were two important things for Shopify. It's essentially, as has been often mentioned, corporate social responsibility. They need to make sure that this platform is being used by the right people and not for the wrong reasons. And that kind of brings us over actually to legal, right? They need to be careful and make sure that they're following prescribed rules. Environmental, they're online, so it's not as big a deal. But still, they should encourage, they should use their size and influence to encourage a greener world, and in the operations of their headquarters and of their buildings, we would hope that they have green practices. And finally, I'm finishing with technological because this is very important. wherever they're operating in the world, they're obviously going to have to be careful of the capabilities of that country and fully utilizing the capabilities of that country and not failing. We're going to move in from the external environment all the way over to the internal environment. So let's have a look, shall we, at our other websites again. Back here is just an example of something legal and how they address it. They have a wide variety of things to help the people who use their website and their platform without even being registered, right? Somebody's asking about the rules regarding basically how information is transferred when people make purchases, right? And here they are. Here's an example of a legal matter that they might face and how they deal with it, right? They have something that explains the rules for the people, right? They are aware of them and they are dealing with it. This is part of their external environment. All right? And now, as we're going to their internal environment, we're moving over. Look at this. And part of the internal environment, we're looking at the employees. We're looking at the parts that constitute Shopify. And we can only hope that they do the best job possible. And in all of Canada, out of all of the companies, Glassdoor has awarded them as being the best company to work for. So clearly they're doing something right. Let's take a little further look here. Who's leading them? Who's promoting within their internal environment this great company? Well, their leader, their founder, who I have not mentioned until now, is Toby Lutke, who started in 2004. Started the company in 2004. A brief description of how it actually arrived now, since I'm here, is they were software programmers, him and some friends, or they had experience in it, and they wanted to sell snowboards, so they started their own website. But what people loved the most about the website was not what they were selling, but how they were selling it. And since that was so acclaimed, they decided to move into the e-commerce business, right? And if you just go down and you start looking at their next to their names, you see all these things. And I would say that this is characteristic of a divisional approach. Since we're just looking at it, the organization itself is divisional. You have financial, product. It's all separated between those not divisional, functional. Those different functionalities, right? It's fairly regionalized, so it's one country mostly. Well, Western. I'll speak to you more about that later, but it's functional, products, finance, all that stuff. Let's take a deeper look. What makes this such a great place to work? Well, look at these offices. That seems on level with what we're seeing at places like Google. Who wouldn't want to work here? And of course that's important, because you want to attract the right type of employees. If you have software people, you need some creativity in there. And I'm sure if I was a creative person, this place would suit me very well. Okay, so let's look a bit further, right? Let's go back to our Word document and see where we are. We've gone through the external environment. We've gone through the internal one. Now let's go back to the external. We'll take a little bit of a deeper look. And I think for companies, you can never ignore the importance of who? The competitors, right? They play an integral part. Whether you have to look at other parts, of course, but you can't ignore the competitors. So who would be the competitors of someone like Shopify? Well, other internet platforms, of course. Places like Wix, Squarespace. Tumblr. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess they let people build websites on there. But e-commerce seems a little bit more specific, doesn't it? Here we get a better comparison. Places like WordPress, Squarespace. Oh, Shopify. Let's go take a look at it, shall we? What makes Shopify so great? Something you always see. They always talk about how it's fully hosted. We'll see this more, or if you ever wanted to go look into Shopify, you would notice how people always talk about the full range of services that Shopify provides to its customers. Why is that so important? Well, if we just take a look, the impression I get is that Shopify is doing this to make life easier for their customers, right? These are people who won't necessarily be experienced, but who know how useful selling online can be to supplement perhaps their brick and mortar store. Here's another place, Magento. Yes, they're an e-commerce one as well, but they seem to be a bit more complicated. Time, effort, money. When people are already investing in their business itself, I don't think they don't want to put in the risk, right? They want it to be as easy as possible. Not everybody can hire programmers or people who know specifically how to do this. What's this then? We've seen that Shopify it's not too complicated, but it gives a lot of services, whereas some of the other ones you will see they're quite simple. They're useful if you're just starting out and aren't too serious about it, but I think Shopify, it's right in that middle ground, right? They find out what you need. When I'm doing this project, I couldn't help but seeing every time I did research on Shopify, they seem to be really focused. They seem to have a good idea of what their target market needs, and they focus on that, and they're trying to, without you even telling them what you need, they're figuring it out. But this is in the Western market where we saw on that map. They're all in the Western market, but what's this Baozun company? Who are these people? What we see here is the Shopify of China. Well, that's not good. Is Shopify in China? Well, in fact, no, it's not. And we'll see later, after we look at this competition, why? And is this a problem? Do I think it's a problem? I'll let you know. Let's just look a little bit behind this. Innovation is in their DNA. It seems like they are also dedicated to helping their customers. And that person mentioned, they're working. They're supported by Alibaba, which is also working with Tmall. These are some pretty big players in China. I think Spotify might have to be careful. Now, does this matter? Can we glean anything from other North American companies and maybe compare them to other Chinese companies? Well, I'm asking the question because the answer is yes. Why Amazon should fear Alibaba. Indeed, why Amazon should fear Alibaba. Well then, I think we're getting on the right track here. We're seeing Shopify, another tech company like Amazon, and the threat from a Chinese company. And this is where my analysis comes in, right? This is where the first step of mine comes in. I'm worried that Shopify is playing it too lax against a Chinese company. And we've seen these companies, Amazon, Alibaba, and Tencent, and Baidu, who have been able to use their time in China, grow there, and then in the future, they're going to come and compete with these American companies. I'd be worried. Is there anything else that might be plaguing Shopify? Okay, that's not good. Okay, that's not good. So that's another one of their external stakeholders and part of their external environment. The media. You've got to be careful. As we've seen, it's a company that's growing. They need to be careful for those on the outside. These people, in the long run, could hurt them if they're not careful. And why are these people coming against them? Right? Is Shopify doing something wrong? We'll see more later. Let's see where we are now. We looked at the stakeholders. We've looked at the challenges. Some two pretty important challenges, I would say. Now, let's get an idea of what we have to go against these challenges, to maybe figure out how to solve them. Well, luckily I have this tool right here, EBSCOhost, Emerald Research. These are perfect tools, and if you ever need to do an analysis, you can use these tools right here to find out more and maybe get some strong proof for your ideas to help these companies. Here's a little show of just how it can help. The first one you saw over there, Cage. I think Shopify should go to China, but they can't just jump in there. They can't just go. They've probably thought about that. Not only will it cost resources, once you go there, if you were to go there, you don't want to waste them. So, luckily, I was able to do some research, and I found out that before they go there, they better be careful for things like cultural distance, administrative distance, economic distance, not just geographic distance. You know, differences between their cultures and the ones that they primarily serve right now that they'll be able to see, analyze, and better react to before they go in, as I think they should. And as you can see, by doing some research on those, you can find out a little bit more. You can find out that regionalism is a way of going into countries and looking at countries as a company and seeing that they're different from where you are and putting a specific strategy for when you go into there. You would have learned that they need to have the right organizational structure that will permit them to, when they plan on going in there, to learn from their surroundings, right? To not be deaf to what is going on around them and to utilize it if they hope to compete with those other Chinese companies. You would have found out information supporting the facts of the growth in China and of the growth of the right types of population, people who are using the internet. And you would have found, this could have helped for the other two parts in seeing the distance in administrative and cultural distances, that they need to trust you. And this brings us back to the media things that we saw. This is why you need to deal with these issues before you go over there, so that when you go into China, you're not dealing with these issues. And why is this a problem? Well, let's just skip right to some of my strategic recommendations, since this is the whole reason that you're here. Something that I saw, something that I noted in looking at the media, is that when there's that Breitbart issue, which is essentially people saw a very bad company, a very bad magazine, indirectly using Shopify to sell some products. And Shopify, they didn't kick them off. Thing is, the people who were already using the platform couldn't really leave, right? So when Shopify goes to China, they better make sure they don't drive those people in a different direction. And if they do drive them in their own direction, that's great, because once they have them, they have a much better chance of keeping them. Because you invest yourself in it. Shopify makes it very easy to get in, which is another bonus, because once you get in, that's when you start investing yourself. that's where it matters, right? So Shopify needs to build on this. They need to build on their offering to their customer. I've noticed, and I hope you've seen through my presentation, how uh, how excited I am by how efficient they are and how good they are at creating a product that is designed so close to being as perfect for their target base as they can. And I can only hope that they're going to be able to continue on that. But the thing is that if you look on their map, it's focused on the Western world. As you go east, it gets more and more sparse. So this is a good opportunity for them to enter into a market that's different, that they don't have as much knowledge on, but it's an important one, and they can use that as a stepping stone to learn from and how to reach those people that they didn't traditionally reach. Maybe people who weren't as tech savvy. Maybe people, as we see, these are emerging markets. So people that they weren't on the internet as perhaps their traditional customers, but they can learn how to better reach these people and be the first to provide them with the service. And if they're the first and these people invest themselves in it, well, that's great. They've got some lifetime customers there, hopefully. And at the same time, this growth in other areas will hopefully address and put to rest some of the issues, such as we saw in the Citron research, where it seemed like only 20,000 out of 500,000 of the companies were the true important ones. The other ones were, they, as he said, get quick rich schemes. But even if they weren't that, they just weren't important players. By bringing more important players in, they can prove to the world their worth and their valuation. And this is important because they can subsequently reuse that this growth, this wider base that they've got, still within that segment, still giving those customers, those clients, what they need, but leveraging that size and saying, we're not going to accept bad practices. We're not going to accept companies, upgrading maybe the requirements that you need to have to be one of the users of their system, and hopefully that they'll be able to stay and compete with these other Chinese companies, and basically by getting growth there in an early enough stage, they'll be able to leverage their position in many different ways, ethically, as I've mentioned also here, growth related to multinational companies who maybe don't want to use the Chinese Tmall or e-commerce platforms, who don't want to interact with that, who'd much rather maybe interact with a B2B company who's using the Shopify platform, who maybe they feel more comfortable with, who maybe they trust more. So I personally think that these are some ideas that Shopify could take into consideration if they have the time, and maybe this future growth would be plausible. Of course, following the theoretical rules. You always must have a basis in the theory. Other people have done this research for a reason, to support when other people decide to take on these endeavors, that they can come back to these and know that there's some basis in science for it, right? Whether it's how to properly communicate with your environment, really embracing the consumer, the CSR, right? Really embracing it, not just not on in a minimalistic way, but truly embracing it, because in the long term, those are the companies that people appreciate. It's important for people. You see more and more these days, the biggest companies to stay competitive, so that people can't find any reasons to go to their competitors. They're embracing not only the economic, the profit importance, but also environment and ethical. And I think I may have given in this report Shopify the tools to accomplish this. And I thank you for listening, and